folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics on Right. Sorry for that. We've been having a little bit of problems getting all this stuff set up, you know. It's been one of those weeks, but we had a great time at Netroots Nation 2023. We had a great time, and we're going to have a great show for you today. I'm back from Chicago. It was great. It was maravilloso. The crimes and dangers of Elliot Abrams. That guy's a criminal. You're absolutely right. By the way, Eric, I think I see Eric Hayes. Oh, I didn't get shot in Chicago. I didn't hear about anybody getting shot in Chicago. Beautiful place. Beautiful, beautiful city. You know, everywhere has its bad places, but Chicago, the third largest city in the country, it was a beautiful place. I've been there several times without a problem. Maywood, good afternoon. E2247, good afternoon. Bridge MCP, good afternoon. Lee Grant, good afternoon. Thank you guys for being here. Guess what? At the end of the video, as I promised, for all of those who provided the support for the trip, we didn't meet our goal, but you still have time to support the trip. As it turns out, you'll see at the end of this video what I actually did. Anyhow, I want to play a video from a friend of mine. He's now the mayor of a town in North Carolina, another activist that decided to go out there and change things. And he's been working at it. He has a project called the Black Men Voter Project or something like that. But anyhow, let's go ahead and listen to the first interview. I played several of them live when I was at Netroots. But I want you to check this one out, and then we'll take it on the other side. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. Hey, folks, when I talk about the activists of activists, I'm not being overblown. We're here with Mondale Robinson. Mondale, how you doing today, my brother? Great to have you here.
It's good to be back. It's good. I owe you this. I'm behind.
Actually, yeah, you stood me up the last Netroots, man. I'm hurt.
Charge it to my head, not my heart.
Okay, I know it's not your heart. I know it's not your heart. Anyway, look here. You've been doing a lot of great things. You have a new organization. Well, it's not new anymore, but you have an organization that's really getting voters engaged. Talk to me a little bit about it.
Yeah, man. Black Male Voter Project. We're going into our 5th election cycle right now. Mm-hmm. So she's no longer a baby.
I know.
She's a kindergartner now.
Exactly right.
And like kindergartners, she's learning so much more about black men specifically. What we know.
Let me stop you right here. Why do you have to centralize on black men? We know we have a voter issue around, but there's something specific about black men that you got to centralize. So talk about it.
Yeah, it's the lack of prioritization from the party, auxiliaries, and frankly, any organization doing this work. Mm-hmm. How is it 2023 and we're the only national organization talking to black men, which is the second largest base voter for people that believe in progressive ideas?
There are some people that would say, well, we think, it's the same all life matter kind of folks that says, why do we need to go ahead and segment or create an identity that we somehow have to treat black men differently in the voting process? Yeah. Explain exactly why that is a must, especially given our history.
Yeah, I mean, listen. First of all, black men were the first guinea pigs for voter suppression. The 15th Amendment started what would become what we suffer from right now. And also it matters that to be black man in America is unique in a way that is horrible. Black men suffer the worst social markers of any demographic in this country. We have the shortest lives, the worst economic outcomes. We're more likely to be killed or targeted by police officers, and also school and the prison justice system is not working for us. So to be black men and not see your issues prioritized by a party that says they're speaking on your behalf is the absolute reason why Black Male Voter Project exists.
It is interesting because I always talk to folks, folks would always talk about identity politics. We need to get away from identity politics. I said we can only get away from identity politics. We only can get away from women's issues, men issues, black men issues, etc. when identities don't matter. And at this point in our history, identity matters. Expound on that.
Yeah, I mean, getting away from identity politics sounds like a talking point for Republicans.
Right.
It's the idea that you don't need to be woke. the anti-woke mob or the woke mob, whatever they want to call us. Think about that in terms, who wants to walk around sleep? What are you trying to hide from me? What do I need not know for you to suffer from your politics? So this idea that you don't need to talk about identities is to say that I don't need to say what's really ailing me. I don't need to talk about what's killing my communities. That to me goes against everything I stand for, not just politically, but religiously. I serve a Jesus that was a minority Jew born under Roman occupation, who was bilingual, who said what you do for the most or the least, and also what you don't do for them, you're speaking to my policies. So the idea that for me to not talk about identity politics is to go against my guy, and I can't do that.
Exactly right. Now, let's go deep now into your organization. Tell me first of all, what are you doing? What's your approach? How are you getting to these people, not only in the urban areas and the cities, but also in rural areas across the country?
I think what happens is, I'm glad you asked about rural area too, because a lot of the time people think about black men as the thug in the suburban, right? In the urban areas, right? Big cities. But in actuality, black people are overrepresented in rural spaces, especially in the South. Black people represent 30% of the rural population in southern states.
Right.
Nationally, we're only about 13% of the population. So that means we're overrepresented in rural spaces. So the idea that we have a program that does not speak to rural spaces would be incomplete anyway. But our program is a year-round program that does not focus on traditional methods or candidate work.
So let me stop you for a second. Does that mean you are not dependent on even though you've been around for 5 election cycles, you make sure, unlike what, let's say, the parties do, you don't only try to contact your folks during an election cycle, but throughout the year? Yeah,
I think that transactional nature of campaigns, like calling people 2 months before an election to talk about how important this election is, how important this candidate is, this candidate can save your life, does not ring true with black men. There's never been a candidate or an election that saved black men. This is why we find ourselves where we are right now. So we know if we're going to be trusted messengers for this demographic, then we have to show up every day. So we knock all year round. We also have programs that are built to mimic the lived experience of black men. It's called Brother Be Voting, which is our focus group. We don't let cameras in there. It's not like an overt political conversation. We only let 3 political people in, and the other 74 are brothers who are gang member drug dealers who don't vote at all or vote sporadically. Because I feel like if we're going to expand the electorate, we don't need to worry about voter registration with black men. We don't have a voter registration. We don't have a clientele problem. We have a product problem. People aren't buying the Democratic product, right? 72% of the black men that are registered in this country right now either did not vote or only voted in one of the last 3 elections. Listen to me, 73% of black men that are registered to vote in this country is rejecting our politics. 73% said, I'm not voting, or I've only voted in 1 election. These are brothers who are already registered. So don't talk to me about voter registration when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing with this demographic. And people should know this is not a critique of black men, because we know that every time a demographic increase in its participation in an election, it's because they spent more resources on them. So when you see black men being more likely to be non-voters or 1 election voters than they are 2 election or super voters, then that's a critique of the model that you're running, that transactional nature that you're talking about, where you show up after Labor Day telling me how important this election is when you're not doing anything when the police are killing my brothers and my family members.
You know something, Mondale, you hit on something. I've been concerned watching how many, let's say, black men starting to jump on the Trump bandwagon.
It's not many.
And I know it's not many. I'm not trying to make it many, but I'm saying that any would. Any would, right? Believe it or not, speaks to what you're saying. It has been transactional. If somebody says, well, I've tried this, I've tried that, what the hell? Let me just try something else.
And I mean, so the beautiful part of it is black men aren't growing their support for Republicans, right? There's always, since the switch in the 60s, right? Since...
Explain that, because a lot of people have... You know, one of the selling points on the parties is like, hey, remember, the Republican Party is the ones who signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and the Democratic Party is the one who was into segregation back in the... Explain to folks why that is a silly argument.
It's a silly argument because of the same reason Ronald Reagan was a Republican. Let me explain what I'm talking about. In the 60s, there was a woman. It was a lot of people. But let's be clear. It was the work of a Southern black woman, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, of course.
Okay, that said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I know.
Right? And she argued and made the Democratic Party seat black people at the 1968 convention.
Right.
Right? And when black people got seated by the Democratic Party, all the racist white Democrats left the party.
And formed
the Republicans. The Dixiecrats and the New Republicans.
Right.
One of those Democrats that left the party that year was Ronald Reagan.
Right.
Right?
Oh, wait, believe it or not, I didn't know that.
Exactly. It was Ronald Reagan.
Maybe
right?
that's why he started his campaign the way he did.
And that's exactly why.
Yeah.
He went to Mississippi,
right.
to Philadelphia, Mississippi,
right.
to send a point to white racists that,
well,
hey,
I just
I'm
learned
with you.
something, Mondale. I did know Reagan was a part of that cabal that led.
Absolutely. Okay. Reagan, Strong, Thurman, all of them. So what happened is this idea that Lincoln Republicans are now Democrats. Mm-hmm. So people, that mixture, I literally just screamed at Jesse Waters on Fox about this. Like, you're out of your mind. Your Republican Party is not the party of Lincoln.
Exactly.
You're not the party of Lincoln. That's almost like me saying, I'm the same as Frederick Douglass.
Exactly.
I'm not Frederick Douglass. Right? I would have never went to the Hayes administration.
Right.
I would have never talked about black people not needing education.
Right.
That would have been my stance. So people need to understand that history matters for a lot of reasons.
I'm glad you brought that up. I am so glad because that is almost blasphemy in some.
It is blasphemy.
In some black environments, that would be blasphemy.
It is absolutely. Anybody that understands black history, it's almost like saying, I'm the one that freed you, but also, check this out.
Yeah.
Check this out. I'm the one that freed you from slavery. But then you discount the fact that in the 60s, you're the one that said I shouldn't be able to vote.
Exactly.
You're the one that said I should be killed for talking to or competing with white people.
I want to say something here to the audience. Let me tell you something, guys. One of the reasons it's important to hear all perspectives, right, is because even things, you learn the myth about Frederick Douglass, you learn the myth about Ronald Reagan, you learn the myth about all these things. When you have folks that are not distilled by the history that's been anesthetized or sanitized that you get in school, it's the best way. Yeah. I learned something today.
Yeah.
Continue, Mondale.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, talking to your audience, I would challenge all of y'all to stop thinking of the United Daughters of Confederates as the women who made the monuments, all these Confederate monuments get put up. And think about what they did to our education. Right. If you dive into the United Daughters of Confederacy and see what they did to the Southern education, how they banned books, banned books, any book that
just start.
No, they banned, United Daughters of Confederacy banned books right after the Civil War. Right. So if you said anything negative about Confederate soldiers, if you said anything negative about the Klan, then those books couldn't be in Southern schools. Right. The idea of the lost cause that supports white people and white supremacy, and that there was Northern aggression, that's why Southern fought the Confederate War, all of that was taught through the USD, the United Daughters of Confederacy's control over Southern schools. If you consider that, and you see where we are right now, where you have Florida and other states banning books, we are about to face another generation that is completely ignorant to what really is happening right now.
About that. You're so right about that. But we are already ignorant from a sanitized history that we learned here. Come on, Christopher Columbus was a hero and not a killer, right?
Right.
The things that we've learned in the country and that is now called woke because we decide to tell the truth. Right. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, and the funny part is all you got to do is say, yeah, I'm woke. Like, if you think about what they're saying, the anti-woke mob.
I want to be woke.
Listen, exactly. Who wants to walk around sleep? You're going to bump into shit. You're going to trip over stuff.
Right.
Excuse my language.
Right.
But let's be honest. Like, this idea that you're telling people, be anti-woke.
Right.
And we know what it is. Woke is the new N-word.
Right.
You went from thug to woke. You're literally saying you have to be anti-black to be a part of this. Let's think about the history of the word woke. It came from Marcus Garvey.
Right.
It came from black people saying stay woke, to be aware of what white supremacy can and will do to you.
Right.
Or what it is doing to you. Mm-hmm. So they definitely want their parties to be anti-woke. They say woke mob and sound like clowns.
Right.
You're dog whistling to the wrong people. You're letting black people know that you're anti-black when you say anti-woke.
You know, it is amazing. What gets me is that in this year, we still have to fight these issues. And I'm not talking about fighting this one. I'm talking about that we still have to go through the psychological impacts of this kind of stuff. And anyway, to close this stuff out, brother, give the audience a closer. I mean, I think they've gotten a good education right now. Give us a closer.
I would say to your audience, to you, to anybody that can hear me in earshot, to truly discount everything you've learned about electoral politics and also the status quo. The status quo has failed us, continue to fail us, and it's because we allow it. There's no such thing as political power. That's perceived power. There's a lot of shit called people power, and we don't own that space. We need to take back the ideal of people power and remind elected officials, and I am an elected official, remind elected officials that I work for you. And when you don't do your job, you get fired. It's nothing revolutionary about electing somebody. What's revolutionary is unelecting an incumbent. So everybody should be dead set on unelecting incumbents that are not doing anything that benefits the least of us. Peace.
Mondale Robinson, thank you.
Always a pleasure being your face,
being on
brother.
Politics Done Right. You keep up the good work because
Thank
you know what? We need truth tellers, brother.
Thank you, brother.
You take care.
All right, peace.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. All right, folks, I hope you like that. I went ahead and let that play through because I wanted everybody to see who the producers, supporters of all our Netroots videos are. And if you notice, it listed all our supporters of the Netroots trip to Chicago. So anyhow, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. I have another one that I want to show you as well. Let's see. Let me go ahead and show that other one now because I think it's important. This is a young lady. I knew her for over a decade as she came to Netroots year after year after year. She's a grown woman now at 25, and she's still coming to Netroots to get her progressive bona fides relit every single year. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side. Welcome to Politics Done Right at Netroots Nation 2023. And who do I have the honor to sit with? The one and only Ali Thome. Ali, I met you when you were a little girl coming with mom and dad to Netroots. And I tell you something, to watch you grow up and become who you've become, it's great. Why don't you tell me about your Netroots and experience from the time you started coming out here?
So this is my 10-year anniversary of coming to Netroots. So the first time I came, I was 15. But my parents have been attending Netroots since the very first one. So I think they've both got their 15-year buttons on.
Yes.
So I grew up so excited for the time when I finally felt like I'd be ready to go and enjoy and have fun. And I just immediately jumped into volunteering because that's what my parents love to do too.
But you know what is interesting, Ali? You've been named the mayor of Town Hall this year, correct?
The deputy mayor.
The deputy
I'm
mayor.
second in command to the wonderful Linda Lee, who runs this whole shebang in here.
But let me tell you why. I think once before you were like sort of a leader on the floor a few years ago. What were you then?
I was the deputy mayor then, so I'm always second in command to Linda, but it's still a very fine title.
But it's not only a fine title, it's an important title because everybody knows you and you go around and you keep these things running just fine.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm glad that you spoke about your parents' volunteerism because what I think I want to impart to a whole lot of folks that are watching us right now is that parents matter and how you are reared matter. And for you to have seen, well, I tell you what, don't let me answer that. You saw parents who did things.
Absolutely.
What did that mean to you?
I mean, it meant so much. My parents were so involved with not only like watching the events, but helping to put it together. And I mean, they always made sure to remind me that this entire convention is put together by 4 paid staff. Everybody else is volunteers. And I think that's really incredible that we've got 3,000 people here between like in person and remote. That is incredible, and it's all done with the help, or a lot of it is done with the help of volunteers. And seeing my parents doing it, and not just doing it begrudgingly or doing it because it got them a reduced price ticket, but doing it because they adored doing it, just meant so much to me.
Now, what does it also mean for your activism and your political awareness? Because as it turns out, one of the things that we hear a lot about young people your age, and your either teens or low 20s or whatever, is that they're not engaged into the body politic. And I think by you coming here, you actually see a reason why you must be, why you should be.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm always surprised by the number of young people that I do see here. But yeah, I think a lot of people in my generation are either like disillusioned by the political system. They see the like struggles that we've had the past couple of years, the struggles that we have, even though we have like a Democrat in the White House. And I think a lot of people my age just struggle to see, like, you know, the light on the other side. But I think it's coming to events like this that help me see that light and see that it's not just a small movement of progressive people. It really is. We've got thousands of people here, and it's just so amazing to see the passion, all the people who dedicate their lives to making this a better world to live in, a better country to live in. It gives me the motivation to keep going, to vote, to be involved in like local elections, to get like loved ones involved. So I mean, I feel like this really gives me like the confidence I need to go out into the greater world and sort of spread that optimism and that belief. And you know, the idea that we can't do this alone. It's a group effort, you know? And seeing so many people come together for a common goal, it's inspiring.
Well, let me tell you what is inspiring for me. What is inspiring for me is when I see young people like yourself not only jump and take the baton, because, you know, we're getting old, man. We're getting old, you know. We can't keep doing this stuff. We have to pass the baton. And knowing that, and I'm not saying this. I'm not saying this to be kind. Knowing that we are passing the baton to folks like you and other young people that show up here, that are engaged, it is like, you know what? We are going to be okay after all. We are going to be okay after all. I have no doubt. I have no doubt that given the caliber of teens and young adults that I've seen pass through here and that I've spoken to, we're going to be in good hands. So, Ali, it's been my pleasure to speak to you. Keep doing what you're doing, and you keep coming out here, all right?
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, folks, I hope you liked that one. Like I said, I knew her from she was, you know, a kid coming to the thing, and she was always running around with dad and mom. And the good thing about it is, you know, people always knew who her parents were, so they'd take care of them if they're all over the place or whatever. You know, it is great seeing these kids that have grown up at Netroots Nation and now making a difference, and pretty soon going to be a big part of it. Let's see. Melanie Keelan says it is so important. We're getting up there. Yeah, we are. Paul Fleming says when multi-billionaires take control of our most vital tool, which is communication, is not a win for democracy. It's a win for the oligarchy. I agree. Let's see. You said something that was real important before, Paul, that I want to bring up. You said you have to have a great job to be a volunteer. Most slaves aren't given that what's most precious: time. And I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you this story, but before that, let me just say, Bridge asked, what does her parents do? Her father is an engineer, a software engineer working, and her mother, I think, is in the med business, if I remember correctly. But they would come and spend the 4, 5, 6 days at Netroots yearly. Every year that I've been there, they were there, except for last year. I think last year was the only one that they missed, and because they had something else. But there are a lot of other people like that are there on a yearly basis. Now, I want to address Paul, Brother Paul Fleming. Netroots was, for the longest time, from its inception. And by the way, let me just tell you, you'll see an interview that I do with Marcos Molitsas, who is the creator of Daily Coast, the most trafficked progressive site, bar none, in the country. All right. And out of Daily Coast, that progressive blog, came what we called Yearly Coast. And then it evolved into Netroots Nation, where all these politicians and everybody else came to exchange ideas, meet, like any other conference, but it was a progressive conference. But in as much as it was a progressive conference, and if you go to Netroots or to Daily Coast, there are a lot of Black writers, Latino writers, etc. In fact, Marcos Molitsas is a Latino, right? The founder of this organization is a Latino, Marcos Molitsas. And so it was always interesting to me. I went every year, but it was a very, very white space. And also in being a white space, most of the things that were done, again, it never took the panels that we had, etc. Very few times did they cover issues that really were BIPOC issues, things that affect Latinos, things that affect Asians, I'm talking in the aggregate. Eventually, the few Black folks and Latinos and others that went to this conference, they started to write in and say, look, this is not, we're a progressive organization. And Netroots is about 19 years. Yeah. And I've been attending for about, I think, 12 or 15, somewhere around there. But people were complaining about that, and they made a switch. Sometimes I think the switch was not sufficiently natural, but they did things like give scholarships, etc., for people of color to show up. And this goes into what Brother Paul Fleming had to say. In the aggregate, because people of color that, they either don't have jobs that allow them to travel, are not the ones generally chosen to travel to go to these conferences, or they just don't have that thing that Paul talks about, time. All right. We had a Netroots in Atlanta about 4 years ago, Paul. And, I don't know why then I didn't put one and one together so that we could have met when we had the Netroots in Atlanta. But anyhow, so as it turns out, they started to give scholarships to schools and different folks so that they could come into town. Some of them even got airfare. Some of them got rooms, etc. And they did that to try to say, we need to do something to equalize the floor. Now, a lot of Republicans would say, that's a handout, or, why are you doing things like that? It's not fair to others. Well, again, we're coming from where, and I hope my conservatives that are listening understand this. There is a built-in bias against people of color in the country, not necessarily, some overtly, but not necessarily overtly, but just by the reality of the country. When the laws in this country were written racially, and I'm talking about explicitly racially, because they're still written racially right now, but we can go into that another day. But when they were explicitly racial, they created inherent biases that goes on forever. And we can go into the prices of homes. We can go into the type of the credit that people get and the interest that is charged for one particular group versus another particular group. There are a lot of things that we can go into to show that the systemic nature of what this country has done to BIPOCs century after century is a result of what you see right now, the poverty rates that are higher, the crime rates that are higher. All those things have its genesis in the same place. And we as progressives, those of us at Netroots, had to realize that the solution to that problem had to involve those people that were oppressed. Henceforth, the scholarships, henceforth, centralizing several times on issues. If you went to a Netroots this year we had a huge overrepresentation. I'm talking about in the plenaries, etc. There was a very overrepresentation of blacks in these I said it first and now I miss it. Plenaries, right? And the reason why is more than likely the past underrepresentation that gave a skewed view of how things were. The same applied to affirmative action, etc. People will say like, well, how come they're giving more scholarships to X group and not this group? And you have to say the same thing. When X group was getting the advantages, all the country's advantages, of course, that is something that would have to be mitigated and then seen. Melanie E22 said, thank you. This is sad, but necessary information. E2247 is always keeping us informed as well. The Israel-Palestinian issue, the Biden and Abrams issue. Yes, it is terrible. It is terrible. Anyhow, so Paul, the reason why I wanted to expand on what you had to say there is that it is really an issue. I mean, from voluntarism, etc. And it creates a it's Egberto. It's not a pie. What are you talking about, Bridge, when you say it's not a pie? I'm not sure what we're talking about when you say it's not a pie. So help me out there. Bridge. Anyhow, so as it turns out, those are important issues to take into account. Let me give another thing. You have progressives that are working hard to solve a problem. If you don't have representation, if you don't have people who are there from the community at large that needs these assistances to move themselves to the next level, how can you know what to do? And that has always been the issue. That the solutions that these progressive organizations put out there may not be the solution that works in the community because you had no access to the community to understand that community and what would work within that community. Henceforth, diversity is so important. Henceforth, even in colleges and universities where you're educating teachers, the teachers need to know how to address these other communities. And how can they know that if they're not surrounded with other folks that have different realities? Social workers, you're going to have a social worker in a classroom where they're testing each other. How can you not have a diverse environment so that when one side says something, the other side can say, well, remember this particular issue, it doesn't work like that. And I'm talking about it on all sides. On all sides. Egberto Willis, meaning when you all share the same issue, you cannot divvy it up into pieces. You join together, not a slice of a pie each. Exactly, Bridge. I get it now. I get it. Paul Fleming says, you're saying exactly what I was thinking. It's pretty. It's making me laugh. Everything I'm thinking, you're just saying out loud. Paul, life experiences, right? That's what it's all about. Life experiences. When I walk into America, my life experience was probably not much different than your life experience, Paul Fleming Sr. We handle it differently. I don't know how you've handled it, but I'm pretty sure you've handled it darn good if you've made it as you have. But I wrote the book Tribulations of a Latino, Afro-Latino Caribbean Man for that reason. You have to get that, And folks, actually, you should go to Amazon and pick up you can't pick up my book yet. It's in online reading format at Amazon. Anyhow, let's go take a look at Christie. Christie is right, Christie said, you know what? I am signing that contract. I want to debate. And I'm going to do exactly what Donald Trump did. If it's good for Donald Trump, it is good for me. So therefore, I want you to check this out. And then we'll take it on the other side. A few of the candidates said, we are not going to sign that pledge that says we are definitely going to support whoever the Republican Party nominates as the person leading the party for the presidency. And we have heard from Texas who said it would be a lie to do that. Well, of course, Donald Trump signed it back in 2016. And when it was asked on stage if he will follow his pledge to support whoever was the nominee if it weren't him, and he said to everybody, no. Well, you know what? Christie said, well, you know what? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And while I can understand how the ethics behind a former representative Hurd from Texas, who is also running for president, while I can understand his stance in a country that could possibly be led by a heathenist thug, I think what Christie is saying here is apropos. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
First debate, as you note, now almost a month away. I want you to take a listen to what your fellow 2024 candidate, former Texas Congressman Will Hurd, had to say about those who take the debate pledge to support the eventual nominee. This is what he had to say a couple weeks ago.
I can't lie to get access to a microphone. I'm not going to support Donald Trump. I recognize the impact that it has on my ability to get access to the debate stage, but I can't lie. It'll be easy to say I'll do it, and then when it comes down, change your mind. But I can't do that.
In Will Hurd's formulation, are you lying to make the debate stage by signing a pledge to support the nominee, no matter who it is, including if it's Donald Trump?
Well, I won't see Will Hurd on the debate stage, and that's okay by me. The fact is, we've got to change our party, Jake, and change our country. And we had these debate pledges 8 years ago, as you'll recall, and all of us signed them. And then when we got on the debate stage and we were asked to reaffirm it, Donald Trump refused to raise his hand, the only one of 10 candidates who did. The fact is, he has set the precedent here, and I will sign the debate pledge, and I will take it every bit as seriously as he did in 2016.
We understand what that said. I will take the pledge that I sign as seriously as Donald Trump himself took the pledge. I will take it as seriously as Donald Trump took the pledge. And I think that is, in fact, the right thing for Christie to do. All right, let's see. E2247 says, what a conversation with author Faith leader Wes Granberg Michelson when Tuesday, August 18. We're Zoom. What is it about, Paul? E2247. Did you mention that before? Tell them not to allow this man who has caused so much death, pain, and destruction already to have a new reign. U.S. Capitol Switchboard. I thank you for pushing that issue about Abrams, E2247. You are so right about that. You are so right about that. I want to play another piece, and this is still on my mind. This is still on my mind about that new drug that's out there. Listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side as well. There's a new drug that came out, right? Well, it's, they've been working on it for a while for Alzheimer's, and they want Americans to pay $26,500 per year for this drug. Sanders went ahead and he started to raise hell. He says, he raises concerns over outrageous prices of the new Alzheimer drugs. Not only does the high price of Leqembi threaten Medicare's finances, it will also negatively impact seniors on fixed incomes suffering from Alzheimer's who simply cannot afford to pay. Again, we always have that pay for play. Senator Bernie Sanders on Monday reiterated his concerns over the staggering price tag of a new approved Alzheimer's Medicare medication after the Biden administration failed to respond to his letter last month urging swift executive action to force down the cost. In a new letter to Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra, Sanders wrote that the current $26,500 price for Leqembi is outrageous and demanded that the Biden administration explain why the cost of this drug cannot be reduced to $8,900, which is the price independent experts believe it should cost based on its effectiveness. Sanders, the chair of the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Health Committee, raised particular alarm over the drug's possible impact on Medicare finances. Shortly after the Food and Drug Administration approved Leqembi last week, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services announced that Medicare will cover the treatment broadly, a contrast from its decision last year to limit coverage of Aduhelm, a different high-priced Alzheimer's drug. KFF estimates that if 5% of people with Alzheimer's disease use Leqembi, also known as lecanemab, Medicare's annual outlays for the IV infusion would be $8.9 billion, a spending increase that would push premiums up for all Medicare recipients. In other words, that $8 billion, $8.9 billion is a transfer of wealth from all of us, including higher premiums, to those rich fat cats who said, hey, people get Alzheimer's. We can make a ton of money off of their illness. See why I said that this type of stuff, medical expenses do not belong in the private sector, because since it is something that people want, they need, I'm ill, I want to get cured, we will pay anything for it. They know it and they bilk us for it, even as all of the research that go into all of these devices ultimately has a public component. The researchers were educated many times by public universities. The company's investment in these drugs many a times are covered by grants and universities. And moreover, even if they do some research themselves, if they lose money, they never lose money. Why? Because all that money that they lose is written off on their taxes on the profits of other drugs. So it's a lie to you. Whenever you hear they're not going to invent new drugs, if you don't allow them to overcharge you, it's a lie. But it's a lie that's not only known by like myself and many others. It's a lie known by the government. It's a lie known by everybody. It's a bunch of people fixing the cost of these drugs to transfer the wealth, to extract the wealth and give it to a few. We have to stop this. We have to stop this. As Sanders wrote, not only does the high price of Leqembi threaten Medicare finances, it will also negatively impact seniors on fixed incomes suffering from Alzheimer's, who simply cannot afford to pay the 20% copay of more than $5,000 a year for this drug. With a median income of about $30,000 a year for seniors on Medicare, the purchase of this drug would amount to over 1/6 of their income. Just that one drug, not their entire healthcare bill, just that one drug. That is unacceptable, the senator continued. A prescription drug is not effective if a patient who needs that drug cannot afford it. Worse, it's not like that drug is so effective that it deserves the price. You know, the drug industry is the only people that charge you for lack of performance. In other words, they have a drug that may help somebody live 30 days more, 60 days more on the aggregate. And they feel for that, they are willing to charge the arm and a leg. That is ridiculous. If I have a drug that's going to give me 60 more days on earth, I will give my daughter, my wife, and all my loved ones a big hug and say, I love you guys. You know what? I love you so much that it's time for me to go, and you go ahead and take that income that they would have ripped off from you to the drug companies. Please use that to have a better life. Please use that to soothe the pain of losing me, because I would have been lost anyway. Folks, we have to stop it. We have to stop this thievery. We have to stop this thuggish behavior by those who control our healthcare. We have to have healthcare for all. We have to take this country, not take this country back. We have to take this country away from those who have used us nothing more than slaves, indentured servants, and antiseptic slaves. We have to do better. We can do better. We must elect progressives who actually think about humanity before they think about anything else. Absolutely. So anyhow, mira, mi hermanos, Bruce Pollard is in the house. Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. I don't know if I saluted you before, Melanie, but anyhow, Melanie is in the house as well. Hey, Bruce, why don't you call in? Bruce was out there at Netroots with me, and Bruce had himself a ball. You should call in and tell folks to use up some of this time and say, you know what? Let me tell you what's going on. Bruce, the number is 281-823-7747. If you're on the computer, I imagine you can call 281-823-7747. One more time, 281-823-7747. And don't forget, we are still trying to get to that point where the trip is paid for that I did to Chicago. We're not there yet, so the thing is still open, and I'd like to ask you guys to go ahead and continue. If you notice, I put that cheat sheet at the end with all the people who are now the producers and supporters of the thing, right? Wouldn't you like your name on that as well as a producer, a supporter? We need more of you. Hey, wait, what's going on here? No, get out of there. All right, that's fine. All right. So anyway, folks, the telephone number to call in, if you'd like to call in, is 281-823-7747. One more time, it is 281-823-7747. Don't be shy, Bruce. Call in and tell folks your experience. Let them know that it's worth it. Tom C. says, catching the end of the show. Hope all is well in Chicago and elsewhere. Yep. But I'm back in Houston, Texas. It was a 4-day conference. Let's see. Egberto Willis. Oh, there is Bruce. All right. Let's see if it works. Let me get the echo off. Bruce, are you there?
I'm there.
All right. Good. Beforehand, though, I think they're going to get an echo. Okay. Let's see. Folks, can you hear Bruce just fine? I trust. Go ahead, Bruce.
Hey, how are you all? We're back from Netroots Nation. I'm energized to go out and do some activism and moms demand action for gun sense. And they're going to have Gun Sense University next month in Chicago as well. My wife's going up to that. And we're going to try and work one thing at a time. I guess red flag laws are going to be our first big push, along with being smart and keeping guns safe for everybody by locking them up and making sure that we ask questions so that our kids don't get in the way of guns.
Now, Bruce, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience at Netroots? What's your thoughts about it? You know, let folks know, hey, maybe it's something that you should go to as well.
Well, it's amazing experience because they have a whole bunch of, in the typical conference, they have panels, and the panels I went to one panel that had a Moms Demand Action leader, but it also had 3 attorneys general. And they all were talking about what were the important things and how they could maybe get things better. And they're dealing with, in the Chicago and Illinois, they're dealing with trying to get the bail laws changed. And so they talk specifically about that. And the meetings revolved around local issues. And there were mostly local people there, at least in Chicago. And when you talk to them one-on-one, they were in touch with those issues. So you got a feel for what was going to be happening in that area so you could watch that. And you could also carry those ideas back. They also had training sessions that were simulations of situations that might happen in your group, that they broke up into little groups and you worked on them. And then the leaders from major organizations that had success came around and coached you. So it was great.
Now, what did you think about the caliber of people that were attending?
Yeah, so it was always the best. In the panels, they had the best people. In the trainers, they had trainers So, I'm older, but the trainers are all younger generation people who are committed, but have knowledge a lot about the social networking space and how to leverage the social networking. And they're starting to learn about artificial intelligence, but not quite yet. Of course, artificial intelligence hasn't developed to be the challenge that we expect it to be. But in general, the people are, and they're all positive, smiling, happy, friendly, working together to make things be better.
Yeah, I enjoyed having Bruce out there with me. He would be all over the stuff as I was planted at that table, interview after interview after interview. Bridge, I did over 44 interviews.
It's hard
Go
to
ahead,
believe
Bruce.
of 1,000 people, at least 90% of them knew Egberto by name, by face, and by politics done right.
Hey, we had fun, and Bruce had that shirt. Bruce had that politics done right shirt on. So I am just proud that my brother decided to wear the shirt one or two of the days, because it meant a little bit of, as we would say, letting people know who don't know about the politics done right. And when they see the signs, it's like, that's where it's from. But anyhow, Bruce, it was great having you out there in Chicago. And I think it was a great experience. And for me, Netroots every year is a new experience and a great experience. And I think a lot more people that's doing this work should go ahead, because like you said, the training is great.
I think that it was really good for a lot of the younger kids in the Chicago area that came and participated. They have discounts for people like that, and the youth is great, but they're not real. They've got a lot to learn. Whereas, in the politics done right discussions that we have, we hit the broad spectrum and we don't use a lot of jargon. We get right down to the point. Egberto leads us to what the focus is from the progressive point of view, and he listens to the arguments back and forth. There weren't quite as many arguments back and forth there as on politics done right, which I think is the way to do politics, and that's why we call it done right.
There you go, brother. And the other thing is that it is our show. It is all our show. And I always try to make sure to say that it's our show, all of our show. Bridge says, Egberto, if a regular person wanted to attend, what is the price to get in? Let me say it this way. I think it's about, what is it, Bruce, for a single activist? Do you remember what the cost is without?
As a single activist, it was $300.
Uh-huh.
But if you're a student somewhere, the price drops precipitously. And next year it's in Baltimore.
Right.
So that might be an interesting central place to bring the PDR posse together. And
that's true.
We could maybe haggle a discount for everybody, and at the same time have our own. We could get Egberto to do a training class with everybody or a panel. And,
I like that. Bruce, that's why we always have people think about things, right? Because that would be a good thing. And I bet we could get a panel together for that. And Bridge, by the way, they give scholarships. So anybody, let's say that the price is high or whatever, you can get a scholarship for doing that. You can also get a scholarship for volunteering. You can sign up when you're signing up for these things. You can sign up as a volunteer by going to, I think it's netroots.org/volunteer and work with Will, which is my buddy as well, Will Easton. And more than likely, he can arrange it that you can go to the conference for free. They can't pay your airfare or your hotel, but and there are times when they even do that. So you never know. But again, for volunteering, etc., you can actually. There are a lot of ways to be able to go to Netroots Nation for free. Volunteering on the floor.
And there's totally different kinds of people, whatever gender, whatever color, whatever background, whatever your your thing is of action. There's everybody there. They're all talking together. It's the true central, I'll say centroid of intersectionality.
Amen. Anyway, Bruce, we are at 4:01, so I got to get out of Dodge. So look, thank you. So first of all, Bruce, thanks for calling in. Number two, thanks for having been there in Chicago with me. We had quite a bit of fun. I mean, this, just empowering. That's what I should say. We were so empowered out there. But anyway, thank you, my brother.
Yeah, no problem. And we're looking forward to Baltimore in 2024.
Absolutely. Thank you, bud. Anyway, folks, we have to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out! We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.